Hello everybody. Today we are going to, on this video, we are going to learn how to enter an ROI. And the letters ROI stands for Release of Information. And every client should have a release of information before they are even put into Service Point. If they do not sign a release of information, they should not be in Service Point at all, because that is the total point of having an ROI. And so to do that, you would find your client. If you already know their client ID, you would put their client ID right here where it says client ID. But if you had to search for them, you would put their first and last name and whatever other information that you have about them, you can put that there, and then you would search for them. If they were not there, then you would add them as a new client, and then you can proceed to put the ROI in. So we will be doing an ROI for Monique Bryant, client ID 108 today. All right. And so this client has not been put into any projects. I realize that this is just a test client. However, we're just going to go into the ROI tab right there. We're going to add a release of information. We're going to make sure that our provider is the correct provider, especially those of you who have multiple projects under your provider. So if you have a shelter, and then you have also a rapid rehousing project, and then you also have maybe a homeless prevention project, you would just make sure that this provider is the correct provider for the client that you are using at that time. And then you're going to say yes or no to if the release was granted. Hopefully that's a yes, because that's the point of the ROI. And then your start date would be today, or whatever date that you have backdated to when the client started your particular project. And then you would put an end date. Now the end date is determined by your agency. The agency I work for is for the release lasts for 3 years, but you may be at an agency whose release ends in 2 years or even 1 year. So whatever that is, get that information from someone at your agency so that you know the correct end date to put there. So I'm just going to say 3 years. And then the documentation is asking, how did you get that release? We should always be getting a signed statement from the client, which means you got a signed release. There are some other choices, and you can choose those if you so choose to do that. But remember, your client will need to sign that release, and you will need to go back and update it to a signed statement once you actually get that release. But try by all means to get that signed release from the client as soon as possible. Okay. And then witness, you can put a witness there, but you don't necessarily have to. And then you would save that release of information, and then your release of information would show up right there. Now, if you notice at the top of the screen here, it shows when that release of information will expire. If it is close to getting expired, like the next day, it'll give you a warning to say, it's expiring soon, expires tomorrow, or whatever. And if it has already expired, it will show that up here up top. It would say release of information is expired. And so if that's the case and you need to update it, then you would go in and put in a new release of information if the original one has already expired. All right. Thank you guys for watching.